Welcome to the What Makes Us Human podcast with your expert hosts, Pia Johnson,
narcissistic mothers. That's a juicy topic.
Ayanna McNeil,
and I want to talk about the P word, polygamy.
TJ Vulcain.
All those years, I never realized the value of lived experience, right?
So whether you're a psychology enthusiast, a curious mind, or just someone who's intrigued by the human condition, this podcast is for you.
Oh, Lord, Pia, we gonna get into it.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to What Makes Us Human podcast. We're so happy to be here this evening, and I know y'all see we have a new face in the space.
Yes.
And we are so excited to announce that we have a new host, TJ. Give it up for TJ, y'all.
TJ, let me just give everybody, a quick overview of who you are. TJ Vulcain is a devoted Christian and mother of 2 boys. She's also from Brooklyn. TJ is a resilient advocate who has transformed her incarceration experience into a mission of empowerment. Leading a women's workforce development program at the Fortune Society, she helps women transition from incarceration to stable employment, profoundly impacting many, many lives. As a public speaker and author of a memoir, A Black Girl in Orange, which is a really, really good book. You guys have to go get it. We'll let you know where to get it at the end of this episode. Tiffany has shared her story to inspire and advocate. Her advocacy extends to lobbying for the reentry community, influencing policy, and participating in rallies. TJ is also featured in the documentary Preschool to Prison, which is where we actually met. I'm in the documentary with her. Shout out to Dr. K and Edwin. TJ exemplifies unwavering dedication to justice and community support. Welcome, TJ Vulcain, to What Makes Us Human.
Thank you guys so much for inviting me here on this platform. And I'm so excited about the people that we are going to impact. I know it's going to be good. Thank you again.
Yes, we're
Of course,
excited
we're
and
so
thrilled to
happy to
have
have you.
you. Okay, we got a new host, y'all, and we're going to come with some good stuff. TJ, let's just get into it, all right? Let's get into it. I want to start off by asking you, and we ask most of our guests, and you're not a guest, you're a host, but we ask most of the people on the show, what makes them human? So how would you respond to that? What makes you human, TJ?
What makes me human? My experiences. My experiences have made me human. My trauma has made me human. My relationships that go well and the ones that don't go so well make me human. Imperfections make me human. My mistakes make me human. For me, it's like experiencing pain is when you realize you're human. When we have moments where we're crying and we're depressed and we have to figure out how we're going to navigate that makes me human. Me wanting to connect with the higher power and seeking spirituality definitely reminds me that I'm not the end all be all, right? I don't know. I'm not all knowing as God is.
There's so much more to you. Without giving away too much of what's in the book, because we want people to get the book, can you give us a little background about you? Tell us your fascinating, resilient story.
And so I guess I'm going to go back to the beginning. Let me just highlight that my book is only a 5-year period of my life. So it's highlighting my incarceration experience. What I'm going to go through today is more so an overview of my entire life. People say I have an interesting story. I'll let you guys decide that. I started off in a posh life, right? My first memories were back in the Caribbean in Jamaica when I was living with my grandmother. My mom, just like most Caribbean parents, sent me back home. Well, my parents, I should say, sent me back home to get better schooling and just better quality of life. I lived in the home with 2 homemakers. I had a nanny personally for myself, and then we also had a housekeeper. And for me, I thought that was norm, right? I thought everyone had a life like that. And so I was a spoiled brat, and I told my grandmother, I was like, I want to go home and I want to see my mom, right? I started to come of age and start to be more aware, and I realized that everyone else had their mom around, but not me. And so my grandmother didn't want me to go, but she loved me so much that she understood what I was, the void I had. And so I willed myself to America. And when I got here, it was nothing that I expected. It was something like a horror movie. I remember coming in the airport and my parents picking me up. It just was weird from the very beginning. I didn't feel connected to them. I didn't feel that motherly love that I was looking for. Everything was very strained and very forced. And so still trying to figure it out. I remember trying to bond with my brother. I have a younger brother, and that was strange. And so I kind of shifted to being by myself. I think I was about 6 years old. And so my mom, I ended up finding out later on in life, like a couple years ago, took me my whole life to figure out that my mom is actually a narcissist. She's a covert narcissist. And so those narcissists are a little bit more subtle, right? It's very hard to spot, identify. And so my mom was very mean to me, but indirectly. She, alongside my dad, ended up abusing me terribly. I had to stay in my room 24 hours of the day unless I was going to school or going to church. I had to use a potty to use the bathroom. I had to knock on the door to empty out my feces. It's traumatic for me. I still don't like to smell feces. And so, you know, life for me, I never imagined, after experiencing that, I never imagined having a good life after that. Ended up going into the foster care system, which eventually led me to prison. And I'll let you guys ask me some more questions. We could dive into that. But it got to a point where I just didn't think I was deserving of love. I didn't think I was deserving of a good life. I didn't think good people existed, like really good people who could take care of me or love me for me. I ended up attracting more people who would then eventually be abusive to me because of my expectation of abuse, right? And so it's like a hamster wheel.
Yes.
We attract what we think.
Yeah.
And
what we
before I
believe.
started getting into the personal development stuff and really healing myself, I believe that's what I deserve and that's what I continue to get. And so I let you guys chime in from there, but that's kind of like a little bit about.
Wow.
And so you have two children, right? And I know you kind of chronicled that you had your youngest son while you were incarcerated. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do my entire life. I love my children. I've always been a person that wanted connection to family. And so when I had my second child, it was devastating for me because I've always wanted to be close to my family, right? And in this instant, I didn't have that choice. And I had spent 3 days with him in the hospital. In addition to that, he had complications. And so he had to be moved to the NICU. And so I had to advocate for myself in that process, right? I'm incarcerated and they need to reach back out to the facility to see if it's okay for me to visit him in the NICU, right? And so there were precious moments being lost while he's there. I can't be with him. In fact, rewind back to how it all started. It seemingly the entire process was hard for me. I had to advocate for every moment. Everything that I got, there was nothing that was handed to me. From the moment that I walked into the prison, it was an expectation. You can't have your family with you when you're in the hospital giving birth. Tripping over my words, excuse me.
That's fine.
And, you know, I'm like, it was something that I didn't want to accept. I didn't think it was fair. I didn't think it was humane to expect me.
You were married, correct? You were married at the time.
I was married. Married, and
they weren't going to allow your husband to be.
I needed my husband there for support. Right. And so I spoke with the social workers and the case managers and everyone that I needed to speak to. And everyone kept telling me that's not going to happen. You would have to get clearance from the warden. And they said it in a way that it was impossible, right? And so I didn't let it deter me. I said that I'll be speaking to the warden. And so they have something called mainline in the federal system. That's where I was incarcerated. I was prosecuted by the federal government. And on mainline, that is your opportunity where you're able to engage with executives in the prison. And so even on mainline, you have to talk to this person first, then that person first, and then they have to push you to the next person until you get to the top. And so when I had a conversation with the warden, I said the story so many times, repeated myself, and I was almost like on my last leg. And when I explained it to him that I only had 5 years, which was considered short time, some of the women had like 40 and 50 years. And so when I told him and he agreed with no problem, I was overjoyed. It opened my eyes to the power of self-advocacy, to understand that it only took for me to open my mouth. Everyone around me discouraged me and made me feel like it couldn't happen. And so I was able to inspire change in that institution. Other women after me during the birthing process was then able to get family members at the hospital. They didn't do it throughout the whole FBOP, but they did do it in that institution, and that's something I'm really proud of. But anyway, I ended up going into labor at the institution, and many of the women advocated for me, rubbed my back, was there for me, spent a lot of time with me. They gave me snacks. They did anything that I needed to, whatever they thought could soothe me during that process. Eventually, I couldn't take the pain anymore. And it was time. I knew it was time for me to be sent out to the hospital. Now, when they came with the stretcher, and I tried to sit on a stretcher, the stretcher collapsed, right? And so here I am in labor. They can't even get this thing right. They're like, where's the wheelchair? And I can't find the wheelchair. So I'm like, I'll just walk. We just gotta go. And so the walk, just for extra context, the walk from where I was housed in my unit to what they call receiving and discharge had to be about a mile. Right? And so before we even did that mile walk, we had to go to the infirmary. The doctor had to clear my travel. And so I'm in labor, active labor. I'm feeling contractions. I keep having to stop. That's all I knew to do. And so we went through that process, and I got to the infirmary finally. The receiving and discharge after we got the okay from the doctor. And I remember a white woman. She was a gay white woman with a buzz cut. I'll never forget. And she says, she's like, I don't want to go to the hospital. Like, she's frustrated. She doesn't deal with me. She's sucking her teeth, and she's doing this explicitly. And so, she had to take me, and we got inside of the ambulance. And when we got inside of the ambulance and we started to ride, and the bumps and, New York City streets, a mess, they still are. And a contraction hit me so hard, bigger than I'd felt before. And I just reached out to grab her because an impulse. And she snatched her hand away from me. And every time I tell that story, I can feel that moment, this moment. I really mean that. And so I turned my head to the side, and there was like a rail, and I just held the rail, and I let a tear fall, and I just didn't want her to see it. And I was like, I'm really in this by myself. Like, I have to trust these people. These are the people that I have to rely on. And so all I could do was close my eyes and pray. We got to the hospital, and I noticed that the nurse was not even talking to me. She treated me just like the officers did. She would talk to the officers to tell the officers what would happen with me. And it was the observation I noticed right away. And I said, anyway, she said that I couldn't stay and that I was only 3 centimeters dilated and that I needed to go back she said, go back. So I said, in my mind, I'm like, go back where? I can't go home. Do they want me to do you want me to go through my labor process in jail? Like in the prison? I was confused in that moment. And as I listen to more of the conversation about me as if I'm not even there, I realized I'm going to have to go through labor on the unit. So I had to process that. I said, okay, so this is what I have to do. Okay, stay calm. And so the officer, she tried to advocate for me, as horrible as she was. She did try to talk to the nurse, but the hospital was unwilling to house me for that time. And so back to the institution we went. I had to do that walk again. No, they got a wheelchair this time. They did get a wheelchair this time. And when I got back to the unit, the women were like, what happened? And, you know, that's something that really, I love women. The way that they embrace me, I fell in love with women. The way that we nurture each other, and everyone put their differences to the side. Like, there were women that were beefing with each other, and they put that to the side to take care of me. And I will never forget that. And so I endured labor on my bed. They came and they checked on me. But it wasn't the officers that supported me. It was the other inmates. And they, you know, surrounded me with pillows. They rubbed my back. They brought me water. They brought me tea. The officer did give me favor. I was able to go in and out of the shower as much as I wanted to. The hot water was the only thing that I could find that was soothing. So I was in the shower like every 30 minutes until finally my water broke on the bunk. And then I was like, okay, no, it's time to really go. The hospital can't turn me away now. So we went again. Halfway I had to walk. Stretcher, obviously, I didn't even want to try because I didn't want to hit the floor. This time the labor pain was coming hard. I wasn't aware of that kind of labor because the first time I was in labor, my labor was induced. And so I got medication right away and I was comfortable. This time, I was feeling everything. And so I would double over in pain like every couple of steps. I was like, it was very hard for me to walk. We had to go to the infirmary again. That was the protocol. The doctor had to clear my travel once again, which took a few minutes. And so by the time I was walking from the infirmary and they saw how much I was struggling, someone advocated for me to get a wheelchair. They came running with it. And then I was escorted to the receiving and discharge unit. I tell this story because I like to highlight the power of God. I didn't understand in the moment why I had to come back. But in retro, when I look back, it's clear to me that he had a different plan. I now had the most soothing officer, a beautiful woman who broke every rule to support me. Officers are not supposed to touch you at all. They're actually supposed to keep a certain distance from you. They're supposed to speak a certain way to engage with you in a certain manner. She was really like a mom or like a big sister. She rubbed my back. She told me it was going to be okay. She told me everything that I needed to hear to calm me down. And what I later realized that her partner was actually her partner in real life. It's her boyfriend. And so the two of them were so respectful and so loving. When I explained to her that I had favor from the warden and that I needed to contact my husband to let him know that I was there, she was open. She's like, I'll call the institution first to verify that this information is true. But of course I'll call him. I'll do anything you need me to do. The first woman was like, well, I don't know how you're going to get him here. I don't know how you're going to contact him. And so it really was a part of God's plan. He took care of me in moments that I thought that he'd abandoned me. I wasn't even praying at this time. I didn't think I was worthy of favor. And so even in our darkest moments, God is taking care of us. It's the lesson that I got out of all of that.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, one, for sharing your testimony. And I call it testimony because it was a test then, but you have triumphed through it. And it is now a powerful testimony. There's so many takeaways that I want to get into. Since you were 6 years old, you had experienced abuse, neglect, and a feeling of being discarded. And that carried all the way into your adult life and into being institutionalized, first into foster care, which if you want, you can share a little bit about that. And we're actually going to do a whole episode on that, so we can hold off on that if you want. But you were in foster care, and I can only imagine what you experienced in that. Like it or not, foster care is a system.
Yes.
And it institutionalizes children.
Right.
And then from there into federal prison, where you are treated less than a human, like a number, somebody who doesn't even have the decency to hold your hand when you're in active labor, when you're going through something that is one of the most powerful things that birthing individuals, to be politically correct, women can do is give life. You're going through this process and they're talking about you and around you like you're not even there, like you don't exist. And I think that's the failure of systems, is that we take the humanity out of it. We take the humanity, and then the people who rallied around you were the people who society discards, the people who society says are unworthy, simply because they ended up in a situation that any of us could have ended up in with any choices we made. And those inmates that they're labeled, those women rallied around you, like you said, put their differences aside to make sure that you were cared for and loved on. And that was the most love and support you received in the system. Can you just,
in my entire life?
In your entire life. Ain't that something? That's something. Like, I know I wanna highlight, because I'm sitting in front of two award-winning documentary folks here, y'all. I'm already claiming it as award-winning. I don't
It is.
listen.
It is an award-winning.
Okay, well, thank you. See, I didn't know, because I didn't see it yet, but I know it's award-winning.
Yeah.
So they are, and y'all are both in a documentary, right? Can you talk a little bit about what because this is all about systems. The documentary is about systems and the pipeline. And your life is an example of that pipeline. The fact that, unfortunately, neglect and trauma and abuse led you into a system. Can you talk about the documentary
you want to talk about
and how you both became a part of it, and share whatever you can share with our audience about the documentary, please?
Pia is in
I mean, yeah, Pia just said it. Pia was in the documentary too. I'm sitting with 2 stars too.
I'd like for Pia to explain. I think she gives a better overview than I will.
Thank you.
Pia, give us the tea on the documentary.
I'll try my best. So the Preschool to Prison documentary is essentially about the public school system, and how it is over policed. How children are treated within that system who are experiencing mental health crisis. Right? It's about the trauma that children experience who are re-traumatized within the public school system. And the system not recognizing that a child having a temper tantrum should not have to endure the police being called on them,
right?
Being handcuffed, being thrown across rooms by police officers and security officers within the school system, and the need for other services, mental health services within the school system, right?
Yes.
The need for training for staff within the school system to help recognize children who are in crisis and who are going through traumatic events, as well as to help facilitate some help for those children. So it's a really good documentary. It's going to be a 5-part documentary. Right now, the first part is completed, and it has been in quite a few. It's been
over 50 film festivals.
Over
50 film. Come on, y'all. I told y'all I'm sitting with some stars over here. Y'all better recognize.
Yeah.
50 film festivals. That's
and
incredible.
We just came back from Essence. We just came back from a screening in Essence.
Amazing.
Essence. Yeah.
Amazing. And what I love about this, listen, I don't believe in coincidence, so I think everything is divine, is the fact that all 3 of us do advocacy work around changing the narratives of disenfranchised individuals and population. I know TJ works heavily with previously incarcerated individuals, giving them a sense of support afterwards, how to advocate for themselves. And you mentioned self-advocacy and the power of it. And I know that you teach courses and do workshops around that at the Fortune Society. Pia, of course, is the owner of Transformation Counseling Services and provides mental health support and services, equitable, culturally relevant mental health support and services. And Pia and I met working in the school systems. I work for the Department of Health, providing mental health services and training and connection in public schools throughout the 5 boroughs to teach people about trauma-informed practices, to teach people, to reform how people relate to the whole child. So we all do this work professionally, and I think that's amazing. And I'm just making that connection. But it's powerful that y'all are in this documentary, and TJ, you share your story, which is a prime example of the prison to pipeline, school to pipeline. The fact that I'm sure in school, if they had just paid attention to you, and even the best students, I don't know what type of student you were, but if they had just paid attention, if somebody had asked about you as a whole person and not just as a grade, not just as another student, not just as a number, because kids are numbers in the school system as well.
Yes.
If they had seen Tiff, the person, then maybe some of what you went through could have been mitigated. You could have had some intervention. You could have had somebody step in. And, you know, this is a charge for people that are watching this episode. This is a charge, okay? To protect children, to protect our most vulnerable, and to treat everybody worthy of respect and worthy of redeemable qualities. We are better than our worst mistake and our worst choices. And we need to start treating people like that.
That's something
Go ahead.
that I often say, is that I'm so upset with people who were in the positions to help me and empower me and chose not to. It's probably a grudge that I need to pray about removing from my heart. But it's a thing. You grow up to be 35 years old. I'm 36. Whew. I'm 36 years old, and now you get an awareness. Once you pass 30, you understand now different things. And so
Yeah.
I see things from a different lens. And I know some of these people. And it's like, you saw me struggling. I was in a private school some of the time.
Wow.
And you never took the opportunity to support me, not once.
That's something to point out too, that I don't think we highlighted about your story, Tiff, is the fact that, you know, they always talk about, they want to paint the picture of disenfranchised and struggling, impoverished neighborhoods. But you actually came from well-to-do family. On paper, successful family. Y'all had some coin, y'all had some money, y'all weren't struggling. And like you said, you went to private schools, and you still, in your words, lived a life of horror behind closed doors.
I did.
And people ignored it.
I did. And it's not something I try to cover up. Usually my kind of family, it's not, you don't talk about things like that, right? This is something you sweep under the rug. I come from the family that people would describe as a white picket fence.
Wow.
My dad was a owner of a parking lot in the city. He made so much money. And my mom, she was an educator. She was actually a teacher.
Wow.
And widely recognized for her work. She did really great work for the DOE, but came home and treated me horribly. I don't remember my mother ever hugging. I remember moments where I'm hearing her on the phone talking to parents and engaging with kids, and they're talking about, thank you so much for the pizza party. And I'm like, I wish we had a pizza party.
Wow. And you locked behind a door. Wow.
My ears to the door trying to get some type of human interaction.
Some type of connection. Yeah, connection.
You know, the ironic thing is that you say you ended up in foster care because you kept running away, not because there was an investigation of the abuse that you endured. I mean, the electrocution, the beating, all of that. And so it was just totally ignored, and you were placed into that system for fleeing, for running away to safety from harm.
And I'm sure labeled as a delinquent to be placed into the system.
And also, I was labeled. What I understand now was my mother had a strategy. So I had several mental institution stays, right? And when my mother, she would say crazy stuff like, I'm doing things to her in her sleep, right? I'm cutting her in her sleep. But my adult mind is like, you never woke up. How can I be breaking out of a room? The windows are nailed shut with an ADT alarm system on the window and the door.
Wow.
There's padlocks on the window and the door, on the outside of the door. How can I be getting out of this room to then break into your room? So she played victim a lot. And these doctors went for that. And I would say, like, I sat there, they would say, so why are you doing this? And I'd be like, I don't know. Because it got to a point where I lost sense of reality.
You were gaslit. Yeah, your mother gaslit you.
She gaslighted me.
And you know what is so... I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your point.
Okay. You trust your parents as a child more than you trust yourself.
Yes.
And so she said something's wrong with me. Something has to be wrong with me.
Wow.
So I'm in the hospital. I'm like, maybe they could fix me. And then when I get home, it'll be all better. I won't get the beatings anymore because they're going to fix me. And then the first day turned into second day to a third day. But the power of God. I remember them trying to put me on several medications. Those medications never agreed with me. I remember having seizures, some kind of uncontrollable mouth opening where I wasn't able to control my muscles. Exactly. Yes. And so they were like, she can't take this medication. That was God's hand on me. I could have, I could have been out of my mind. There was nothing wrong with me. And so it took so long for me to realize, like, you were only deemed crazy in this house. When I was in Jamaica, I was just fine. When I was in those foster homes, I was acting up, but they never said I was crazy. Relationships that didn't go so well, but mental health was never a concern. No one ever made it seem like I had a mental health issue. So then I started to do some reflecting. And that was happening when I was in prison. A lot. I would get a lot of flashbacks. I was in solitary confinement. And so that time that I thought was horrible in this concrete box, it saved my life. I was able to comb through experiences in my mind. You don't have anything else to do.
Right.
And I was like, it's my mom. It was my mom. My dad electrocuted me under my mother's request. I was beat with bicycle locks under my mother's request. And she would sit back and say, I'm just behind my husband. I have to support my husband. But you orchestrated it. They ostracized me from my entire family. They lied to me and made it seem like no one wants anything to do with you. You're crazy.
Wow.
So I thought I had no family. Meanwhile, my whole family was looking for me on both sides of my family. And I was left to rot in foster care.
And the connection I made...
System as well.
Right. The connection I made was you've been incarcerated since you came to the U.S. You said that... Yeah, you said... Like, I know you share in your book the 5 years you were in federal prison, but you were not free in your mother's household. You said they nailed the window shut and had alarm systems, locked you in a room. You had been in prison since you were 6 years old.
And there were no alarm systems anywhere else in the house, only on my room.
Can we go into how you found your healing? How are you now let me not say that, because you've always been the incredible TJ. So let me be very clear.
That's me.
You have always been who you are.
Yes.
And all of the experiences that happened to you didn't break that spirit. So you've always had this spirit and you've always been this person. But how did you get to your healing? Because after all of that, there had to be some work done to get a healthy healing space. How did you get there?
A combination of things. I have always been a believer, even when I was in that room. 7 to 8 years old, I was on my knees praying. God, please just get me out of here. I don't want to die. I thought I was going to die. And so he answered my prayer, and I kept praying for something different, something new, someone to help me, someone to mentor me, someone to teach me. And I think it was while I was in prison, he started giving me enlightenment. And I said, I need the tools. Give me tools. Give me wisdom. I pray for wisdom a lot. I pray for wisdom every single day. I realized that someone said to me, why do you keep asking everything? You don't trust yourself? Every time there's time for you to make a decision, you keep asking me my opinion. And I realized that I didn't trust myself because I thought I was crazy. And so I prayed and I asked God to bless me with wisdom, and he did. And so in that, I started seeking personal development content. I also was always an advocate for mental health treatment. So I had always been in therapy. So aligning myself with individuals who wasn't mental health. I ended up going to college for 2 years because I wanted to learn about psychology. That was the only reason why I majored in psychology. And so I put myself in a position to be very close with one of my professors who did a lot of mentoring. Every day we would walk home, well, 2 or 3 times a week. We would walk home to the train. We would walk to the train station together. And so I would tell her a little bit about my story every day. And she would give me more and more of what I needed to hear. That was post-incarceration. And so I started just doing the work. After I had enough information on my own, I realized that I'm going to have to do this work every day. And so to this day, I listen to personal development. I seek out the information that I need. Struggle with confidence. I knew that I learned that's a skill set. You don't ever have to be in the position you're in now, right? You know within yourself the things that the voids that you have.
Yes.
And so for me, it was believing in myself. It was letting go of the past. It was becoming empowered. I knew I wanted to be impactful. And so I started learning those strategies in real time, alongside prayer, alongside mental health support, and lastly, alongside incredible mentors. Mentorship is also something that I highly value, right? Being able to get on the phone and even calling Pia. Hey, Pia, I'm going through this thing. She's not my therapist, but we have a good relationship where I can say, what do you think about this? I value that kind of mentorship, and that's how I was able to free myself mentally.
I love that.
Thank you.
Pia,
You're
Pia
welcome.
and TJ, we could talk for hours because your story is so compelling. But listen, y'all heard it here for yourself how powerful TJ is and why it makes perfect sense that she's our new host on What Makes Us Human podcast. And we are just so excited to have you in this space, to have you bring your expertise into this space, your spirit, your energy, your light, your gorgeousness, all of the above. We're excited to have you here. And just tell the people what they really want to know. Where can they find you? How can they connect to you? And most importantly, where can they go buy that book so they can really get the full story? Let people know where they can find you.
So TJ Vulcain, TJ Vulcain, VULCAIN, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok. You can also go to tjvulcain.com. Connect with me. I'm here.
Yes, and buy the book. And the name of the book is
A Black Girl in Orange. And don't go to Amazon.
Right.
Pay the Jeff Bezos.
Don't pay the middleman. Jeff Bezos got enough money. Get the book direct.
And Ayanna, let's talk about your book.
Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you, darling. I was about to say it's not about me, but thank you.
It's all of us.
Thank you, my love. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at Harriet, like Tubman, returned, like she came back, on Facebook and Instagram. And my website is www.harrietreturn.com. And all of the books that I have published are there and available, including my latest, which I'm very proud about, which is an anthology for Black women by Black women. And 6 Black women got together and wrote that book out of love. It was a labor of love. So check that out. And Pia, what you doing nowadays besides starring in documentaries and being fabulous? And where can people find you?
Well, I don't have a book. However,
Yet.
They
Right.
can find me on they can find me on Instagram at Transformation Counseling SVCS on
There you
Instagram.
go.
Or they can go directly to the website. They can find me. You can find Ayanna or 6 other therapists that work in transformation counseling services at transformcounselingservices.com.
We are going to keep giving y'all these thought-provoking, insightful, engaging, and entertaining, because we got all of that for you, conversations. So we want you to like, subscribe, comment, follow, tag somebody so they can like, subscribe, follow. Give us the last word. You give us the last word of the episode. What you got to say to the folk?
Never give up on yourself.
Mm.
It don't matter how dark some days may get. As long as you believe in you and you start loving on you and you believe that you can climb your way out, it's possible for you. Even
Yes.
when people tell you it's not.
Yes.
Love it.